Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome to yet another Energy Geek Speak within the YouTube group channel entitled Evolve Within Love. And you have found me, Blossom, Christine Marguerite, Blossom, here to discuss what we mean and how to understand what Ken Wilber, the philosopher, calls magical thinking. Many others call this view of life magical thinking as well, but that's where we're going with things today. Thank you for dealing with the tech. All right, and let's begin. So, how do we understand the magical, miraculous view of reality? I want to unpeel what this is. I believe this is hugely important for light workers and hugely significant, particularly in this modern world, because we come up against, as we're doing our work and we're having perceptions of things and then sharing them with others in the greater world, we sometimes come up against other belief systems that hold religion or science as their primary truth, their primary belief system, which colors their view. And I would say generally, most of us who live in this day and age do hold science viewpoint as a truth, as a reality. So let me unpack this a little bit. We're going to go back. Many moons ago, when I was in graduate school, I studied the work of Ken Wilber, particularly as he talks about the evolution of consciousness, which is one foundational thread in his work. And I can put some links below here. So in this perennial philosophy that he has, which may be I keep wanting to say perennial philosophy, but I really do want to highlight one tenet of his work because it still has meaning for us. And I believe he still does a lot of this work. If so, I will link some things below. Thank you, Ken Wilber. The evolution of consciousness. So as we understand that, as Ken Wilber posits the ideas of evolution of consciousness, we have to look at the evolution of the human mind and how it understands and perceives reality. These days, our neocortex has been studied much as neuroscience can study the workings of the brain and what those things do. Within the neocortex, we move into maths and sciences and evolved languages, and the idea to really enhance our imagination and think in terms of philosophical what ifs. We accept and we understand that the world can be seen through microscopes and telescopes, which influences our understanding of who we are and how we view the world. This has not always been so. If you took a Wayback Machine, which is one of his terms, or he may have taken that from someplace else, but we'll just talk about it now. In the Wayback Machine, way back, as humans were first evolving and looking to reflect on their world and how to function within it, their viewpoint was very different because of the tools they had and understandings they had at the time. So I don't want to unpack all the different viewpoints and how we got from alpha to omega in terms of the evolution of the human brain and therefore its understanding of its world and itself, which also influences cultural understanding. At a certain point in evolution, the human understood the world in magical terms. And from this arose cultures and beliefs in spirituality that look particular ways. Animism, shamanism, old ancient yogas and traditions within that. Eventually, more information was gathered, better tools, on and on and on, until we come into the modern day, the contemporary world. What's interesting about scientific thought and better skills and tools that have influenced not just our human brains, but our general cultural thinking and ways of viewing our world. We tend to dismiss where we have come from and believe that this current way of thinking with the scientific mind is the truth and the best truth and the only truth. Now, in some ways, this is limiting, and in some ways, it's beneficial. What I believe is happening now is with our evolved brains, and I ought to say that as this way of viewing the world influences the mind and ways of thinking, it also influences culture and society and groupthink, preferences. Where I'm hoping that we are evolving towards now is this scientific mind, this evolved mind that can look backwards on how it used to think. I want to make a note here because there's another thing to mention. With a more kind and more soft gaze, with an embrace rather than a dismiss. What I ought to add here now is that one idea is that as the human grows from infant to mature adulthood, sometime by the time you're 30 or so, one hopes, it moves through these different stages of evolution as well. And because I'm highlighting magical thinking, there's a certain stage within your growth as a human being where magical thinking is your reality, appears to be your truth. When I exhale, that ripples forth and butterflies come to me from some unseen magical force affecting this cause and effect. And then you learn and you grow and you evolve, where you see and you believe that is not the only truth. And you may at a certain point dismiss that as childlike thinking. Something interesting happened a couple of decades ago where humans, frustrated with scientific thought and the disassociation that occurred within the dismissal of the past, began to embrace magical thinking, for example, and other types and ways of being as more important, more significant, and than scientific thought. And so a whole movements arose out of this primitive, it's not quite primitive thinking, but in some ways primitivism and magical thinking, where there became a value where that became better. Because they couldn't be and both. It had to be either or. So better to live off the land without technology, without modern medicine, to then dismiss this evolutionary progress that is beneficial, and dismiss that entirely, and to move back into perhaps a magical way of thinking. And again, I'm just using magical thought as a way of being. And I'll mention again, like I said, mushrooming out of this potentiality were all kinds of movements and groups of people believing this as the better truth. My hope is this, and this is where it becomes significant for those working in the woo, for light workers, where primarily as you function, you can embrace the highest evolutionary aspects of your beingness, where you can embrace science for its gifts, philosophical what if thinking for its gifts, for how it benefits you and the culture, humanity at large. And when engaging in particular practices, and this is where I'm going to narrow it down when I start to talk about contemporary shamanism, as well as all of us light workers working in the woo these days. Coming into this, there's a thing, for example, energy work, to be really effective. I, as the practitioner, and perhaps the person receiving the offering of the energy, whether it's one-on-one, in a group, through video, guided meditation. So please look at my other YouTube channel or my website, where I have almost exclusively guided meditations. One has to suspend advanced evolutionary scientific thinking, suspend this, and dive into magical thinking wholeheartedly, full on, using that aspect of the evolved mind, the as if, and diving in temporarily, full on, belief in miracles, belief in the magics, in order for this work, in order for the blessings and energy work to be effective as it possibly can be. Without this change in beliefs, this temporary shift in belief, letting go of your highest evolved perceptions of humanness and moving into magical animism, etc., etc., it's less effective. It requires this belief, this wholehearted, entire system commitment to that practice. Now, as you leave the practice and head back into your life as a biologist, your the aspects of going mind, scientific thinking that are completely beneficial and supportive for the whole health and well-being of the current evolved human. To then not dismiss and doubt what occurred in the magical belief space, to view it as a kindness with its own reality, with its own effects, to not dismiss it as, oh, that's childlike magical thinking that is never true. It is true, and the adult human mind that sees things in other ways is also true. And we become a human walking the planet, shifting the percentage of how much the mind is viewing from magical thinking and how much it is viewing from philosophical, scientific thought. There becomes a kind fluidity between each, nothing better than the other, except that in certain circumstances, one is a better view, and in other circumstances, the other is a better view. It's and, not or. It's and. So I believe, I'm offering this here because I believe it's really significant to pay attention the whole health of the being, to use everything that you have access to now as an evolved human, so that your energy work and your work within the woo is more effective, because you can wholeheartedly be there without doubt, sans doubt, when you are engaged in it. And when you leave it, it doesn't become less than. It has its own significance. And as you're marching around your world, if you have an infection in your body, if you've got a gash in your leg, go to a doctor. Go to somebody skilled in medicine. If something is happening with your tech, go to somebody who knows computer programming. There are more skills available now, which is so amazing and so beautiful. All of it, all of it. That's my share for today within Energy Geek Speak. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully this was helpful. May you feel blessed and whole and peaceful, and may your beingness and efforts in this world be all-inclusive. So much love to you. Please, I do want to add here now, please look at what's happening on my different media platforms. I have announcements about classes coming up. We are currently in 2021. I'd be so happy to see you at one of my group energy sessions or in a one-on-one. Look for another Energy Geek Speak where I talk about, perhaps I should talk about it here. No, where I talk about some of the upcoming stuff that requires diving in deep with your belief systems into magical thinking. So much love to everybody. May you be blessed.